Hey everybody, welcome back. It's Do the Work. It's April. We're back in the game, another month, doing another conversation. If you haven't been with us before, I'm going to give you the quick rundown. My name is Arya Davachi. I am the programming director here at Do the Work. Do the Work is an organization that is across the country aimed at creating meaningful, sustainable change for queer people in marketing and advertising. We are all over the place. We are probably in a city that you are in. If you ever need us, we are here for you. And we do these conversations every month. I am so blessed with an incredible team of people who volunteer to make these conversations happen. And we are having wonderful, wonderful in-depth talks where we are able to be honest and able to have community come together in complete spirit of pushing the envelope that we may not be able to push in other places. This is meant to be an open forum for us to really tackle complex issues. And today we are really going after something that I would consider to be particularly complex, which is future leadership, the next generation, if you will, the new generation. Um, it is something that I take very seriously as a person who only in the last probably 14 months have become a senior leader, someone who now runs a department at a company. It's sort of a moment in a career, I think, when you start to actually take a look back and you start to really hone in on like your craft as a leader and you start to formulate your leadership style. People start to ask you that question. You're like, what's your leadership style? And you really start to think back to the early days of like who were the leaders that you really fondly recall carried you. And I think back to my first days in this industry in Adland, decades ago, over a decade ago. And, I remember being at an agency instead of a holding company, an agency that I loved working for. And being the only out gay person at that agency and not having a queer mentor to look up to and not having a queer mentor to even go to. Not having a like didn't feel like I had a safe space for my queerness. And felt like sort of everything that I was doing that was gay was defiant. And that was an interesting mindset. And I, being me, was able to like translate that into, chaotic good energy. Um, but I wish that there was someone who was there that would have been a mentor. And now I carry that into the work that I do. And so with that, I wanted to have this conversation this year. And I wanted to sort of lead this into, the summer, and I wanted to lead it into the fall as people are graduating, people are coming into the workforce. There is a new year of fresh faces entering into our industry. And I'm very lucky to be joined by two folks who, get it and want to also have this conversation and want to also push the needle forward. And I'm so happy to introduce them and welcome them to Do the Work. Laura, I'm going to come to you first. Can you tell the folks where you are, what you do, and how you identify, please?
Well, thank you, Aria. It's great to be here with you and Michael as well. Um, my name is Laura Barnard. Coming at you from Oak Park, Illinois, which is the land of lesbians just on the west side of the city of Chicago. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm the founder of a company called Breakthrough, which I will share a bit more later on. But I'm a recovering marketing executive who started her own company, took the leap of faith back in 2019. So I can kind of do some rear view mirror looking and also hopefully some looking into the future about how we hope to grow our business.
Welcome. I'm so happy that you're here and cannot wait to ask you so many questions.
Perfect.
Michael, I'm going to come to you next. Can you tell the folks where you are, what you do, how you identify, please?
I'm in Asbury Park, New Jersey, Jersey Shore, just about an hour south of the city, New York. I identify with he, him pronouns, and I'm a strategist by trade, and I work right now at a marketing agency, and I sit on a leadership team, and I run head of strategy.
I'm going to stick with you, Michael. Can you tell me about what mentorship looked like for you when you were starting out in the industry?
Yeah, it was so when I started out, I was over in the UK, and my first 3 years of just falling into advertising, understanding, account management, really not liking account management, and then seeing that there was this role that was everything I wanted to do in advertising and nothing, and didn't do anything, didn't touch anything I hated. It was being a planner over there. And all the planners, though, were really very loud, very energetic, effusive gay men. So over in the UK, my career is actually one of the things that got me to be really comfortable with my personal self and my professional self. Um, when I, After 3 years of learning that the craft of where planning started over in the UK and then coming to the States, that was the biggest stark kind of experience because when I kind of stepped into the US market in Madison Avenue, it was very different. It was very, very straight-laced, um, very conservative, and a lot of heads of strategy or bosses of mine were people that I just didn't know how to communicate with professionally. After 3 years of being very comfortable, and I found myself kind of hiding a little bit, and then separating my personal self from my professional self. Um, and then I think when I got later, I had a very loving lesbian mentor. She took me under her wing. She saw that I was just kind of this lost strategist. And she taught me from a mentorship perspective. She was one of the ones who kind of gave me the foundations of my own management and leadership style. So what I love what you said of, what is your leadership style? And my thing I always say when I interview people and people who work for me and with me, um, I'm a best friend with high expectations. The best friend part is I will be your ride or die. I will stand with you in meetings, even if you've screwed up or you're citing the wrong stat or you fumbled. I will still stand there with you. We will navigate around and through it. You won't ever feel like you're left on an island. Um, but the high expectation comes from an acknowledgement of my own ego, of seeing leaders that I never wanted to represent, but also knowing that I come with decades of experience and a way and a constructs of how to do things. But I also want to learn from people in the new generation. So the high expectation aspect manifests in if I ask you to do something, I want it done in the way in which I've prescribed, but even I'm expecting the way I've asked for it to be actually wrong and flawed. So I want to hear from you how my way didn't work and what your way was to actually solve the problem. Because then that action actually addresses my ego unconsciously. I've been heard, and now I have room to listen to the people that I work with, and I no longer have my own internal barriers of get the work done and the chaos of just machine mechanic like work. But from a mentorship perspective, without spiraling too much, that's been the two phrases that kind of help me be a good mentor, be a good listener, without letting the armchair expert or imposter syndrome like take too much control.
I think that's really well said. I think I might steal best friend with high expectations. I think I might steal that.
Feel free.
Yeah, I think I might take it. Um, Laura, what about you? What was it like when you were starting?
Yeah, so I go back to way back to like being in business school back in the early 2000s, like 2006, 2008. Um, and meeting with an advisor, in the spirit of trying to figure out what is my career that I'm going to go, jump 2 feet into. And I didn't quite know which direction to take. I was a psychology major, um, not quite sure what I wanted to do. And that was very much a reset place, right? Getting your MBA sort of opens up some possibilities. And I remember very point blank being asked if I was going to be out to recruiters in the recruiting process. And it struck me as like, wait, is this people are making this choice? They're flipping this on or off to be out in the interview process and the whole relationship building process that is recruiting. And I said, okay, well, yes, I'm going to be out because wherever I choose to sort of plant the seed of like where I want to grow my career has to be a place where I can be me, where the culture is not just like accepting, but encouraging and welcoming and celebrating of diversity. So it was very quickly for me, a wake up of like, okay, there's folks out there who don't feel as comfortable being out in this process very early on in their careers, and feeling grateful that I was out and found a great organization to work with right out of the gates. So I was on the brand management side, brand marketing side for Mars Wrigley, which is a big food and snack and confections company, and really had a wonderful sort of first foray into the marketing world through that organization because the values aligned with my own, and the culture was definitely progressive, inclusive, welcoming, and that made a huge difference in kind of starting off my career.
So now it's sort of like I want to ask how much we think it's changed. Because I mean,
Mm,
for me, it's changed quite a bit, right? Like,
yep.
I am sort of in my own way living proof of the change because I have queer people that I am literally mentoring right now on my own
Yeah.
staff, right? Like I refuse to let anyone go through what I went through in terms of like being the only out gay person in a company. It's like
Hmm.
that's like I just if that's a situation that anyone's going through, like you need to leave that place. It is
Yeah.
I think we've moved past that. But I wonder like Michael, I want to like the bit about like the straight lacing of Madison Avenue,
Mm.
has the industry grown away from that?
Um, I would say, so my experience from being in holdcos, I want to say it's definitely gotten a lot better and become, I think, a lot more diverse than it was, I think, when you and I were starting out. I think the challenge is in the system of those holdcos where there's, and I've been in these roles before, and I've been in a network type role at many networks, and it's really designed for the people who fail up. Or it's designed for the merger and acquisition margins. So if you're left to the margin in an acquisition and you had a CEO or a VP title, you're then suddenly slapped on with an EVP or SVP of something that doesn't matter, and you just exist in the margins and you're thrown into work. Those roles, I think, are a symptom of the system evidently not changing. Um, and I think I saw an article a couple months ago talking about the 2024 being the year of the independent agency. And this is where I actually think it's changing. I think in independent shops, you're seeing the people, the talent who understands the linkage between their professional and personal identities. To what Laura said, there's no switching off for those types of talent, and they're going to those independent shops. They're feeling supported. Benefits are designed around them. Inclusive meetings, structures, work-life balance post-COVID. They can do that. The bigger systems aren't designed for that. So I would say. I think it has generally changed. I think the pocket of big holdco networks, they're not, the system just isn't designed for that type of change, but there is pockets of talent being nurtured, I think growing, and then people will naturally find their exit ramps.
Hmm.
But I think the aspect of from the Madison Avenue concept, I think the other side streets off of Madison Avenue, the independent, the one ways, that's exactly where the there's opportunity and there's community. There's no competitiveness. Um, there's just open arms and saying yes, and you don't get past the first interview if you're not being yourself. But in a holdco, you'll get past the second interview if you're not yourself.
Right.
if that's a way to think about it.
And I wonder, Laura, like, I think particularly, if you don't mind me asking, particularly as like a cis woman, do you
Mhm.
feel like there are still women who are hiding their identity in that process of like, you know, as they move through the interview, as they move through like coming, do you feel like that has changed just from your experience?
I mean, I wish it had changed where everyone was, welcome and free to be themselves. I still think it's an issue holding folks back. And I think, my wife and I are always big proponents, supporters of helping people when they're ready, come out and be out and be proud and setting that example for our daughters, who are now teenagers and just being, of course, like be yourself and whatever, be the best version of yourself that you can be. But I still see it as, I have several friends who are kind of falling into that category who aren't, who are keeping their personal and professional like completely cordoned off, separate. And it's hard to sort of, you talk about leadership at the beginning, Aria, and I think that's a topic that I'm very interested in, but just like who are you as a leader? And when you're constantly kind of separating those things, your personal and professional out and kind of back to that kind of flipping the switch when you cross that threshold into the workplace, kind of that version control, like who are you showing up? And this idea of your authentic leadership is hard when you don't feel comfortable kind of bringing your full identity into a space. And I think some of the work that we do is trying to help folks get more confident and clear and bold to be themselves in the workplace from a leadership perspective, not fit the mold of what they think leadership should be. And so to do that authentically is a great gift. It's a great privilege if you're able to do that, but I still see people held back by that.
Do you see that generationally, or are you seeing that more across the board?
I think it's probably, I mean, probably my sample size is more generational where I think I hope it's getting better for the emerging leader generation where they're coming out of the gates. They're not having that should I or should not I question
Right.
that sort of inflection point at the beginning. So I think it may still be kind of a residual holdout of our older generations, but I hope it's improving for the younger generations.
So, like speaking about younger generations, I mean, part of our jobs as leaders, as they, as they move from coordinators to managers to future leaders, is like, you know, for lack of a better word, protecting them, taking care of them,
Yeah.
mentoring them. It's, how do we do that? Right? Like, A, because we are not perfect, because we also, I mean, we are also, I think we're all probably in the same generation of people. We are also problematic. And so, how do we as what I'm going to make an assumption, millennials, take care of and protect, Gen Z queer people in this industry? How does that work? How does that take shape? Because it's hard. It's difficult. It is challenging. And there are, I think, a lot of folks like myself who are really game to do that. But, you know, that's a dance.
Yeah.
Michael?
Well, I'm grasping my pearls because I'm clearly an older Gen Z. I am not a Gen Y. Um, no.
Perfect.
Um, I would say I think Laurie, you said a word that rung true, but I think that I think bridges the last question in this one, which is confidence. I think the younger generation that wasn't there, I think for ours, they have a lot, they're emboldened. They are emboldened by tools, by pop culture, by mentors, by all the positives and also the negatives that they're pushing against. I think confidence is a tool that has emboldened them to really kind of be the change they want to see in the world. I think from a protection standpoint, though, I think it does have its shadow side to confidence. I think confidence, I've seen it with young professionals who bring their full selves, and I'm not quelling that in any way, shape, or form. But they come with an expectation. They come with that this is who I am. I'm going to be this unapologetically, which is great. Continue. but they're tone deaf to the system. And that's, I think, where they kind of hit a wall
Mhm.
because they come in too loud. They come in ways that um, I think the system is not ready for them, and it makes it very, very, very easy for the loudness or the not what not is even loud. It's just literally them being themselves. It makes it very easy for
Oh, we lost him. Mike,
Very
come on.
easy for them. I could just pick up the sentence.
Yeah, pick it up.
Makes it very easy. This is like Mad Libs. Makes it easy for them to get frustrated.
Yeah.
And I think if you are up against that system, and I was kind of thinking as Michael was speaking there, we've had, now I'm a leader of a very small agency coming from these larger global brand empires, right? So it's a much smaller sample size, but we'll bring in interns who are either in undergrads or MBA programs, and they're of the up and coming generation, and just trying to have empathy for them, and like take that confidence, take that boldness, and try to um, give them some guidance to avoid the pitfalls or avoid that frustration to avoid the being smushed down by the system, if you will. I think as Michael was alluding, that's because like they're full of all this, but this emboldened action orientation, but the system is not caught up yet. So how do you coach them, advise them? And I think I, it's hard to tell someone to be patient because that's not, you want them to be action oriented. You want them to be pushing the envelope, pushing the needle, and the curiosity that they have, the information that they have, the desire to change the world that they have. You don't want to extinguish that. And so that's, being like a parent with a child that was like taking the time to listen and try to understand and guide them. It's I think it's time well spent because you'll reap the rewards of that raw talent, right? You don't want them to get frustrated and defect out of the system, right? You want to keep this next generation engaged and changing teams, organizations, industry, making it better, not defecting out of it because they're frustrated.
Michael, we literally she picked you up. Like,
It
bring
was
it
like
up
a game,
now.
like
Laura,
improv. Let's
if you
go.
want to talk about teamwork, she was, I got it.
Yeah.
She just kept going.
Yeah,
It
I
was
got you.
beautiful work.
Yeah.
I mean,
Intergenerational teamwork. Yeah.
Yeah.
Could Zoom have manifested the actual metaphor of me saying being too bold and coming up against a system?
Bam.
Zoom was like, no,
No,
no.
way too much.
Yeah.
I have questions about this. Okay, because I hear you that like they're coming in hot, right? And there's this. So, are we to tell them, don't come in so hot? Is that what I'm hearing right
No,
now? Like, right.
no. And
Like, how do we do that? Like, how do we
Yeah.
protect?
You just don't want
yeah,
them to
and
get frustrated.
yeah, I think that's like the weird nuance with it. Like they're not coming in too hot themselves. They're coming in exactly as they are. But the system sees it as a temperature too far on one end. And it makes it very, very easy for the system to set up someone else in power to be like, that's too hot. And someone else labels it too hot, or someone else labels it not hot enough. The system allows that. And I think the way in which we can protect them is honestly being able to put them in those situations in ways in which they have a mentor. So the mentor is there to basically be that, to my example of that best friend, that ride or die. I will be there in the room. You're not going to be on your own. You know, the it's almost like what is this generation's baptism by fire? What does that look like? I think our generation, we kind of were left out to the own. We were making it up as we go. Like our mentors didn't understand the channels and the new technology that was coming in, and they didn't understand we were the new behaviors. So we were often the experts of the new voices generation, but we had no power or seniority. So we had to rely on them in this like unhealthy senior like not minority, but like the opposite of senior. I can't have the word at the moment, but that dynamic allowed, I think, us, at least for me, allowed me to see the system very, very quickly and learn how to navigate it. From my perspective, I think the confidence that this generation has makes them blind to seeing the system because they're like, that's not for I don't have your problems. This is me. I go where I want to go, which is great. But I think it just they just have a blind spot when it comes to the system that could work against them. And that's more prevalent in like as I talked about holdcos in indies, like you're gonna find all the like I would recommend to anyone work at a holdco as your junior years. You're gonna get good pay for your your band at that will compared to an indie, and you're gonna get tools, you're gonna get exposure to great creatives, you're gonna get exposure to clients, you're gonna see the system firsthand. That is the best thing to prime you with. Um, Starting off in the indies is going to be tough. You're going to be empowered in the best way. You're going to find community in the best way. And you're going to rise and you're going to get a name for yourself in the best way. And the minute Holdco wants you because you've got notoriety, you've got exposure, you've got network, you've got connection, and you see the system, having never been exposed to it, it is going to jar your world. And you miss the opportunity for a mentor in that system because you're coming in at and even if you're not leadership perspective, but you're senior, you miss that opportunity. So I think mentorship for this generation to protect young queer people is to really make sure they don't lose sight of the system that is there that we are meant to change. And if you don't see it, you can't change it.
That's very well said. I wonder, it was a question that I had later on, but I'm just going to bring it up here. We've all sort of like talked and I think pointed at this thing of like someone in the system's going to say this. The system is not ready. The system is flawed. The system is this. The system, the system, the system, the industry, which really means the industry. To which I'm just sort of gonna say like, okay, so the industry's just like not built for young queer people. Is that right as it stands right now? Obviously, like there are people like the three of us who like would love to see it change and would love to see it evolve. And I don't think we're alone. And also, this is not just about queer people, right? This is broadly must change. This harks back to Me Too. Like this goes back to like 2020. Like this is wide, but I think particularly around young queer folks whose existence is particularly difficult for very senior people at holding companies in particular who like just like could not be bothered to understand any of it. The system is maybe just not welcoming, and it's really concerning to me. And I wonder to you, like, do you think the industry is welcoming to young queer people?
I'm I'm gonna answer, and sorry, Laura, I'm gonna jump in
No,
if you.
you're best suited. I left this. I mean, I was the one who was burned out and left to start my own agency. So you're best suited.
I'm gonna answer this like an annoying strategist. I'm gonna say that this 100% the system is broken and it does not want anyone that is not the majority who's in the system. But I'm going to separate the system from the industry. I think the industry is absolutely primed and completely welcoming to um, queer people, to any minority, because the industry, if you peel back marketing, advertising, creativity, it is built on the white or like I'm thinking of Harry Potter, a visual brain is coming to life, and I'm thinking like the Dementor's kiss, the little white hot soul is coming out. That is subculture. Everything else layered around is our industry. Subculture is built by in the shadows. It's built by the people who have felt kind of misguided, kicked to the curbs, and they're creating beautiful, amazing things. And even taking back to, when I rewinding the clock in that example I gave you, when I was 3 years trained by some amazing LGBT leaders and welcomed in the UK, coming to the US and seeing just kind of the complete opposite and very kind of straight-laced approach. But I've seen the system change because now, if I look at those same titles, women all hold those titles. And you're seeing a group that was quelled and like sequestered and not given that empower. Even looking at the plot of Mad Men, but like they're all amazing, powerful women who know how to navigate the system. They know how to wield their strengths and their superpowers in so many amazing ways and cut through the bullshit and give space to those that they can relate to and have empathy for. And you're seeing that. I think you're seeing the industry has always been about welcome. I think the system, and I think our generation has moved from being sympathetic, of just being pandered to being more empathetic. I don't think the switch has been totally done yet. Case in point with DE&I just like being wiped out and a lot of like even when you think about Pride, corporate sponsors are pulling from Pride, and it's before we had them, it was like, well, don't slap the rainbow. Like July 1st comes around, and you're like, well, fuck the rainbow. Sorry, I've used the word. But now it's like no one's there, and where is the support? Where is the sponsorship coming from? It's not just about parties. It's about welcoming. It's about communities. It's about building all these things, and these brands are walking away, and the system is allowing these big agencies to kind of peel back what they do. And I've seen it happen firsthand. And if you're not the voice in the room at that point, you you can't you can't call it out. But even still, like I've been in extremely senior rooms, and I've called things out, and nothing changes. So, or I get pushed out of the room. It happens, but it's just, I'd rather have said something and been pushed out than not at all, to know that I got to figure out how to empower the next generation to help change the system because I got as far as I thought I could at this moment. So I will learn from the next generation how to help change the system with them.
I think that's really well said. I'm going to take the optimism. I think that's good. I agree with you. There are, and I can think of actually a large handful, if not more, lots more of incredible women who I admire, have worked with, who are at the top of many mastheads, who I trust with my career,
Hmm.
uh, who who have made a difference in my career, who I'm happy to see there. And they know who they are. I'm not going to name them here. Um, Laura, I do want to ask you about something that bothers me, about, mentorship and working, in this space, and something that I've seen and I've had conversations about. And that's sort of like this weird rift inside of the community, right? Like we've talked a lot about like the outside view in and like the generation. I want to talk about now like us, right? Like there's a bit of a rift of like mentorship and unity of like the community of like I'm a gay man, so I'm only going to like mentor gay men. I don't feel this way. I'm currently mentoring a non-binary person who I'm absolutely obsessed with. Like I see myself in them. Like I like really believe that they are going to be they're going to be a better producer than I am. And I do have conversations with people where they're just like, I don't know if I can do this. Like I just like feel very far from them. And it's like there's otherness within otherness. And I
Mhm.
wonder, like, have you worked with clients around like that sort of like difference, and like how do you like talk with people and work with people around like that sort of strange mentality reality, and do you see that in the community?
Yeah, I mean the rift. I think I personally did not experience that. I go back to being again on the brand side at large global organizations that had LGBTQ or Pride employee resource groups and support and all the great things. And I think about my mentors like through my career, like almost as these like lily pads, and not not one mentor. I have friends through that are transcending through over time, right? But these mentors that fulfill specific roles at specific junctures of the career path that we're on, trying to cross the pond, right? And early on, like two of my mentors, as I was kind of navigating being out in the workplace for the first time, were gay men, and one of whom I followed to, we worked at two companies together. So kind of, migrated together across those lily pads. So I definitely, I'm a big proponent of kind of leaning into the differences and exploring, if we see things differently, and there's any tension, like let's explore that. That can be an energizing force. Tension is not a bad thing. Tension is what allows us, to walk across the tightrope from point A to point B. You have to have that force. And I think when we work with teams and clients now, from a leadership development perspective, we want to sort of unearth and explore those differences across people and find out those unique pairings or combinations, or how people can complement each other from a leadership style perspective, to have more innovation, more collaboration, new ideas, new possibilities, versus kind of sticking together, groupthink, herd mentality, like hires like, and like works in a certain way. And so to diversify from a leadership style perspective and find those combinations, find a mentor who has a different leadership style than you do. That's the best way to kind of expand and grow and, push yourself versus kind of finding someone who's exactly like you. So I think the exploring those differences and leaning into them can be really powerful way to learn.
Can I ask you because I've seen that herd mentality, hive mind
Mhm.
inside of ERGs a lot.
Yes. Yeah.
And that you know, initially feels like a really good thing,
Yeah. It's
right?
like,
'Cause
oh,
you're
we're
like, wow,
together.
we're
Yeah.
really united.
We're
We're really
bonded. Yeah.
together. We're gonna make incredible change. And then after a while, it starts, particularly as like someone I was leading an ERG for like 5 years, and I was like, hmm, this is weird.
Yeah.
How do you deal with that?
I mean, I think it comes from, I think, the connection points, like the intersection points, from an ERG perspective, right? Like
Yeah, yeah.
finding the greatest, bringing ERGs together very simply. Like if not just have like, here's the Pride ERG, here's the Black Leaders ERG, here's the fill in the blank, women's ERG, all those, where they still exist, right? Because a lot of those have gone away uh, with the DEI backlash. But I think finding the intersection points and finding common ground in similar challenges, problem solving, opportunities, like needs, benefits that they're seeking, just trying to find creative ways to bring the different ERG, at least at the leadership level, bring them together to say, how can we work together to creatively solve the problems that we're all facing, not so siloed, right? Bring them together. So I think the organizations that have, those co-leads of the ERGs, if you will, talking to each other on a regular basis, not just by their function or by their specific ERG, is a really powerful way to do that.
Okay, so we now like have to address, and Michael, I want to pull you in on this too. Like we have to address the abolishment of DEI because we've like talked
Yeah,
about it like a few
yeah,
times, and
it's
like I'm just like we have to discuss.
yeah,
Um, and it's interesting because Michael, you've specifically talked about like independent agencies, and as someone who works at an independent agency now, like yes, absolutely, like a better space for me as a person who's like deep in their career. Um, But like we don't have ERGs because like we're a small company. Like this is an ERG. Like we're an entire ERG.
yeah.
Right? Like we are, so like what are we gonna what and DI is important for young people. Like obviously, I think we're very, you know, particularly Gen Z women
Hmm.
are very uh, liberally minded, very forward thinking. A handful of a percentage of Gen Z men are as well. There's another sect of them that are not, and that will be something that generation will have to deal with. But what as this industry decides that it doesn't care about DEI, as the industry wipes DEI off the plate, what does that mean? What does that mean for not only the generation to come, but also like for us? Because that does make implications for us as well as just people who exist in the industry. But Michael, what are your thoughts?
I'm going to say something provocative because I think my brain is immediately because I'm still in shock of it, and it's terrible. It's it makes no sense. Like it has its own thing. But um, being provocative though, I think two things. And it ties back to I think the other your point earlier. What happens when you see that, and how do you navigate it? We are we are still human, and I think a true provocative truth about like it's important to know that when you're a part of any community, you're suddenly there's no magic wand that's like, and I actually have a magic Harry Potter wand right now, just because I can, you're not like
How
suddenly like,
convenient.
I know, right? You're not suddenly like gifted all this amazing acceptedness and experience that the community has in wealth and depth. Um, and just because you're a part of the LGBT community doesn't mean you're completely and like open and absolutely accepting to all these things. Because as a human, you've got your own blinders on and you have your own experience. And the point is, when you start in the community, the goal is to expand your horizon. So I think what I think sometimes when you get that other, and then I will connect back to this point about DE&I, but I think when you have when you're met with that pushback or that fear or that tension, I think it's coming from a human place of not understanding or just not knowing how to connect. And it is expressed in a way that is might not be the best, but I think it's coming from just we're human and we're flawed and we don't have that exposure. That same experience, I think, is the tool we need to lean into with how to handle the absence of DE&I. And I think the provocative thing I was going to say is and I don't fully believe what I'm about to say, but because I think it, like even it coming out of my mouth, I'm like, "Ugh, I don't even like what's about to come out of my mouth." But um, I think the way in which we now need to think of it as it was kind of like a crutch, and I know it wasn't at all. But to think about it in that way, if that crutch is removed, we no longer have that safety net and that ability. So now we have to, the only tool we have is to lean into our humanity and realize that just because it's gone doesn't mean that there's not a human on the other side who's I'm talking to or not talking to. And you'll find the humans that are pro DE&I going away. And you'll get that if you connect with them in a human way, because you'll find that you're not connecting with them in a human way. And I think, especially when it comes to the topic of this and mentorship and finding how to navigate your career, um, I think like you said, in the indies, and like what I said earlier, it's a community that you are an ERG, you are this very shared collective. You don't make it past the first interview if you're not that very open, intuitive self, and you're going to walk into a place that's D&I isn't a thing because the whole thing is D&I. And I think of the holdcos and the big systems, D&I was a protection and it was an enablement, it was an empowerment, it was a force, it was this connective tissue. But now that it's not there, you have to almost rely and think, and you don't have the time to mourn that it's not there anymore. You have to look at it as the flaws of what it was, and it was people were relying on it and hiding behind it to get to now and keep the system alive. So I think now it's about really finding those agencies, those HR policies, the interview processes, being asking the questions. How many interviews are there in this process? What is the timeline for the hire? Where is the hire coming from? Finding out the roots of the job spec and when and how it's funded is really important to get to the root cause because I think one of the things that I learned in the system was humans don't matter. It's just dollars. Where do dollars, what's the dollar saying? If the dollar, where's the scope attached to? Who's funding it? And if that's being funded by X agency or X discipline or X client, doesn't matter because you're not a part of that agency and you can't do it. Sorry, end of song, black and white objective. So the same thing goes for job specs and goes for recruitment. And if you're not asking those questions early on in the field, in the screening phase, in the hiring manager phase, what does the first 90 days look like? How is the funding sources shifted over time? Who owns the budget? Like if this role is suddenly not funded, like where are there other internal opportunities? What's that system like? Um, I think those are important questions, and those are human questions because now you're asking business system questions, but you're asking it to someone on the other end who has to admit that they don't have the answers and they're going to figure it out, or they're going to lie and say they have the answers, and you can kind of get the sense that they're probably just hiring a role that needs a body in it, and that body is going to have fake autonomy, which happens all the time at every level. And you're a ceremonial head that needs to just be there for a minute, and then once you're done, you're done. And D and I wouldn't have helped you even if it was still a thing. So it's about really understanding that we're humans working with humans and probing and leaning into that a lot more now because that's the only thing we have. Um, I hope my justification, I didn't totally jar and create a bad soundbite for DEI being a crutch because then I said it again. It's not a
No,
crutch.
I don't think you did. I don't think you did. And I want Laura to be able to respond to you, but I want to say I do think I know that there was a lot, as someone who led a lot of DE&I efforts, um, as someone who like was responsible, there was a lot of like, well, I'm not gonna do it because Arya's doing it. Arya's gonna handle it. And there is something about, well, there's no more Arya, so you have to fucking do it.
Hmm.
I do think that there is that. I think that that's this, that's a very thin silver lining. But like I do think there is a call to action there. There is like a CTA there that like must be that is something that like should be shouted through a megaphone. So I don't think that that's like a terrible soundbite. I think that it makes it's very it takes an intelligent mind to like grasp it. And I think that that's like really in tune with like what needs to be done now because otherwise it's a lot of despair. Um,
Hmm.
Laura, what are your thoughts? And like also like I wonder like how do you in your work like talk about this with your clients? Like how does this manifest?
Yeah, I think, I mean, I hear Michael definitely here, and I appreciate the thoughtful response you shared. And I also think this is like a prime opportunity for the companies who are kind of taking a stand and the organizations and the schools out there that are saying, no, like we are not canceling DEI, we're not changing our policies, we're holding the line and it's important. So from a me finding client perspective, like the organizations we want to work with are the companies that still believe in it, still invest in it, still have ERGs, still have heads of DEI and care about that and invest in it. And I think that's where we see, we work with a lot of very progressive, forward-thinking tech companies now, and there's still investment there, and that's where so we're trying to find the places where our work, which is designed to elevate and empower underrepresented leaders, has a home and there's an appetite to invest in it. And where it doesn't, we've had contracts canceled because the DEI lead is no longer with the company, right? So who do we work with then? And it comes down to finding those P&L owners who have autonomy, who have accountability, who have decision-making authority to say, okay, I want to invest in this type of work for my team because not even it's because it's the right thing to do, because this is the right, this is going to help, elevate them and help us perform as a team. And we need to do this work. It's not a nice to have, right? It's a mandatory. So we're trying to just be, supportive of those organizations that are still holding the line, so to speak, and finding those thought leaders at companies who are still investing in the work.
What
Oh, go ahead, Michael. Yeah, jump in.
um, giving example, the in the beverage world, highly regulated, lots of compliance, lots of nuance, things you can't say and can't even market. For a long time, in the shadows, there, even before the announcements, D&I were like, there was threats of just if you even have D, there's consultants that are paid to go into these companies and dismantle and destroy it. Like this was happening years ago too. Very prevalent in the beverage industry. Um, the to the companies that hold the line, you s- you're going to start to see them very clearly and they're not going to be hard to see anymore. And I think that's a good thing. That's again the small of the silver linings that we could find in this terrible mess. Um, but giving a shout out to a client of mine, and we had these conversations. We had, D&I is gone, and your entire brand is built on the community and ties to it. And not more importantly, our agency is predominantly gay men in leadership. And we are going into these companies. We're going in the beverage world. It's all, unfortunately, old white bald men who
Yeah.
wrote like straight bald men who wrote agreements on the back of the napkins, and that's just what systems have been built around. Um, but Deep Eddy Vodka is a brand that have said we are not changing. It does not matter. They are a part of Heaven Hill Distilleries. They're a part of the big system from a not agency wide, obviously beverage client wide. But Deep Eddy is really about the LGBT community. It's wired into their brand identity, and they're like, we are not changing internally. Those people, those are the humans that I was talking about earlier. Like they're there, they're holding the line to what Laura said. And I think when you find those, it's like going back to the mentorship, like go find people who work there, who goes troll LinkedIn and find the people who have worked at these companies that held the line and reach out to them, even if there is no job spec available, even if you don't work for that company, but you just want to get attached to find out who that person is. Because the minute they're in a hiring manager role or the minute they have funds in whatever company they are, you become top of mind. And I think that's where, calling back to the confidence thing, that's where I would kind of hone the confidence and find the 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 humans you want to work with from the companies that are doing the hard work now. Um, that word with was intentional, not work for, like work with.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
I think that's really, really important for the community because we all can work for anybody. But I think
Yeah.
when you find someone you can work with, it doesn't matter years experience, pay gaps, or seniority or authority. You kind of go in together arm in arm, and that's where you find those protections, those lily pad opportunities that as Laura mentioned. So that's what I would say. I rambled, sorry.
No, you're fine because I'm also going to steal work with, not for. That's also my new leadership style. Thank you for that. I'm going to I'm going to write that down. My friends, we are unfortunately like out of time, which is incredible because like we barely scratched the surface of this. And I also think like in just having this conversation, I realize just how much not only is unraveling, like as we literally speak, but also like how much is at stake. Like just how much is just changing every day. And I think having these conversations is really vital. And I just like don't know how many people are actually even having this conversation. And so I want to just thank you both for having it with me. And I know there are going to be other people who are going to want to have it with you as well. So, Michael, where can people find you to have a longer version of this if they want to continue to talk to you about it?
Um, Find me on LinkedIn. I am not really on social. I have a Instagram, but I never post on it, and I really just do it to doom scroll at night on memes, or I find a PowerPoint hack. But on LinkedIn, Michael J. Loper on LinkedIn. I work for Greenhouse, head of strategy. Reach out, connect with me. Yeah, ask me any questions. I always tell people whenever I get into a mentorship engagement, know that my door is always open, no matter what my email address is, where I am. Um, some days I respond very quickly. Some days I gotta sort through the chaos and I'll get back to you in a week. But I promise that I have seen it. I have flagged it. When my mental space is there to give you the space, I will absolutely do that.
Thank you. Laura, where can people find you?
So, such a small world. I'm also on LinkedIn. That's so crazy. Um, Please find me on LinkedIn, Laura Barnard. And also, please read my book, which is about leadership styles, which I think you two and folks listening and watching can appreciate. It's all about breaking stereotypes in leadership and the different styles that can come to that table to come together to create something really powerful and beautiful and creative. And so find the book at leadershiptypes.com. Check that out. And that's another place to get in touch to and kind of learn more about the thinking and more of the story of how I got to breakthrough from my recovering branding marketing executive place. So anyone looking to start something new on an entrepreneurial journey, I'm happy to be a resource as well.
Amazing. Thank you both so much.
Michael's running to get, okay.
I think it's Michael's
He's
running
got
to get
something good here. What you got there?
I'm just going to flash up. This book is really good for people starting out in their career. It is hard to find. It's small, pocket size, it's visual, it's fantastic. Highly, highly recommend it. And then I was 15 years into my career and I bought this just because it was made to feel really dumb in meetings. And it's just a little book about marketing 101, visuals, and you open it and I was like, I know what I'm talking about. Why was I made to feel dumb?
Totally.
So if I could leave anyone with that, those would be the two things.
Friends, thank you so much. I appreciate you so much. If you all want to get into contact with us at Do the Work, dothework.com. Work is spelled WERQ. We are queer. If you find me on LinkedIn, that is the only place to find me. I do not do social media anymore. You may message me and like, Michael, I will not respond to you in a timely manner. Unfortunately, my calendar is booked and busy and I don't like social media. So I'm not on LinkedIn. So like, please don't take it personally. I promise I will check it. And I will get back to you. But thank you so much, friends, for being here. We will be back next month for another conversation to Do the Work. I hope you both have a great night and hopefully we'll see you back here very soon.
Yeah.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Aria.
Maria.
Thanks.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Laura.
Michael. All
Talk to
right.
you
Nice to
soon.
meet you.
Bye.
Bye, all. Thanks.